Life podcast. I'm here with my co-host, G-Dog, and I'm here with Bonnie Chan. Bonnie, how are you today?
I am doing very well. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for coming on.
And we're very excited to have Bonnie here because she's flown in from the Middle East and prior to that, Malaysia. She's got a very, very busy job. Bonnie is the chief executive of the Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing. Hong Kong Exchange is one of the top 5 stock exchanges in the world. Over 2,600 companies are listed on the exchange with a combined market capitalization of $5 trillion. The exchange offers a range of equity, derivative, commodity, fixed income, and other financial markets products and services, including the London Metal Exchange, which Hong Kong Exchange bought in 2012. The London Metal Exchange is the world center for industrial metals trading and the global price setter for metals, including aluminium, copper, nickel, zinc, and that has $18 trillion of trading value per year. So Bonnie became the chief executive of Hong Kong Exchange in March 2024, and prior to that had other roles at the exchange at Morgan Stanley and was a partner at law firm Davis Polk & Wardwell. Bonnie, to cap it all, has been announced by Fortune magazine as the 7th most powerful woman in Asia. So we're very pleased to have Bonnie with us. Slightly intimidated, Angus and G-Dog. But we'd like to start off, I think, for the listeners, which are very, very diverse and very global. Some of them in the financial markets, a lot of them not in the financial markets, to describe what your role exactly is, both in Hong Kong and internationally.
Sure. And by the way, thank you for having me on the show. So first of all, you have already described what my company does. The way I tend to think about it is that we are a piece of critical market infrastructure for finance. So it's just like, the subway system or roads, right? But instead of carrying cars, we carry capital. So we match capital with opportunities. We are therefore also very important because a lot of stakeholders and businesses rely on us to do their business. Your great company, for example, right? You help lots of investors and companies to trade and raise capital, but you need to be connected to the infrastructure. And so that's what we do. And I lead the company. And internationally, I also feel that that's exactly what we do as well, right? We make sure that, as a super connector between China and the rest of the world, to the extent that the world wants to invest in China or people in China wants to invest in the rest of the world, they can make use of my exchange to do so. And therefore, my job, I think, other than the boring stuff like, figuring out the budget and, the operational stuff and investment in technology, quite a bit of ambassadorial work, right? Just making sure that I'm out there connecting with people and hence the traveling that you mentioned. I do travel quite a bit.
And how much of your training routine in terms of impact does that have on your day-to-day performance?
Okay, so I became the CEO of HKEX a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. And very shortly after I got into the role, I realized that being a CEO is very much like being an athlete. And why do I do that? Now, obviously, people do expect me to be on top form because I'm the face of the company, right? So, you don't expect to see a very weary looking CEO. And many of the things that I do, if I look at my day, my schedule for the day, is packed. It's back to back. It's 10, 15 items. So also, oftentimes very bite-sized, right? But, the kind of discipline that needs to go into it to make sure that whatever task you're doing, whether you're delivering a short speech, whether you're meeting with people, whether you're on a panel, whether you're solving, an incident, requires that strength and resilience. And therefore, I do feel that, the exercise regime helped me quite a bit, in terms of making sure that I have that energy to match the job. And the job in turn gives me a lot of energy. So it's actually quite a good fit.
And you said you're a member of the 5 a.m. club.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
The 5 a.m. club actually starts every day at 4:40. Okay, I'm pushing it a little bit. So if you want me to go through my day,
please.
Okay. So I wake up at 4:40 and sort of get ready for work, have a small breakfast. But before I get to the office, I go to the gym. Okay, so I usually start my morning workout at 6:15. It's an hour. And in the morning, I do weightlifting, weight training. Then, I'll finish. And by the time I get back to the office, it's usually still before 8 a.m. I have my second breakfast. Then the fun begins, when my day starts. It's like I said earlier, right? 10, 15 items of different things. And that's when I'm not traveling, of course. Then I usually finish my day at around 6:30, 7 p.m. I go back home. I cook a very simple dinner for myself and my husband. And then after dinner, I will jump on my exercise bike and I'll do an hour of, cycling. I like to do that because it gives me time to unwind, actually, and really, a bit of time to reflect on what has happened during the day, and get mentally prepared for the next day. I go to bed at 10:30 and, wake up at 4:40 the next morning and, that routine will start all over again.
Have you always been this disciplined, or was there a moment that changed everything?
No, I have never been so disciplined. Two things happened which changed my approach altogether. So the first thing is I turned 50 in 2019. So I guess, when I turned 50, I realized that aging has accelerated on me in many different manifestations. So it caused me to feel that I need to do something different in terms of, getting more fit. And COVID is the second reason. Okay, so of course, during COVID, we couldn't really go out and there wasn't much to do. I mean, there was no traveling whatsoever for a few years. And when we were in the thick of COVID, there was various degrees of lockdown and whatnot, right? So I got very bored, actually, to be honest, at home. And I was like, okay, I can't just sit here and keep sort of binge watching Netflix and whatnot. And so I purchased online an exercise bike. And ever since then, things change. And now I'm hooked, totally hooked.
This is an incredibly inspiring story because a lot of people may be listening to this who don't do any exercise themselves, are in their 40s or 50s and think people that do this are in their 20s and 30s. I can't start now. But you're basically saying you can start at any time.
Yes.
And what is the impact it has had on your mentality, on your job, on your whole joie de vivre?
Okay, so I had to say I'm a totally late bloomer, in the world of exercise. But first of all, I do understand when you say, right, people usually think, this is for people in the younger age, 20s, 30s. And for me, I literally did so little exercise when I was in my 30s and 40s. I mean, I do once in a while do a little bit of something, but it was never sort of very regimental. And it never crossed my mind that I will be doing what I'm doing now, which is, so disciplined and so diligent. But the more I do exercise, the more I really get hooked, because this may be an interesting way of describing it, but when I'm exercising, I have a lot of time to converse with myself. And that is what I really enjoy, especially with weightlifting, right? And every time I walk up to the barbell, I need to sort of speak to myself and get mentally ready for that one big lift. And that to me is a very, how should I put it? I really enjoy it. And so now that I've done it, I'm a big preacher of it. I try to bring it to my office, and I exercise a lot with my team, and it's been great.
So there'll be people with the mindset that you once had to exercise. What advice would you give to those people who just need to take that leap and start a training routine?
Okay. Well, first of all, if you ask me, I really would have love to have started much earlier now that I know the benefits of it. But it's never too late, okay? And I started in my 50s. Usually it feels very intimidating, right? And I still remember the first time I went to the gym and the coach was just sort of checking me out, right? Just make me do little moves here and there and, try to put together a program for me. And I was looking around the gym and you have all these people who are lifting big weights and they have big muscles. And I'm like, I'm going to make a total embarrassment out of myself, right? But I think as soon as you've started, right, and you will quite easily realize the benefits of doing so. And then, it's just grow on you. So just take that leap of faith. Just go. It's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, you exercise. It's your regime, right? You're not competing, right? I mean, you're just sort of basically talking to yourself and figuring out, what make peace with yourself in terms of the exercise.
I agree. I think it's totally meditative.
Yeah.
I think, particularly coming from sort of the Chinese background, the understanding of talking to yourself and yoga and Pilates and meditative activities, I think weight training and any sort of fitness activity is absolutely that. But I'm curious, it's very impressive that you weight train because many people might just start to exercise on a bike or go running. So what was it specifically that started your weight training process?
Okay, so as I said, I started after turning 50 and aging does crazy things on you, right? So I was realizing that my stability was a little compromised, right? When I walk upstairs, walk downstairs, I feel feeble, okay? And that wasn't a good feeling. And then, my knees were hurting. And so I was speaking to a friend, a colleague, and I said, what should I do with this, right? Should I go and consult a doctor? And, he looked at me and he said, have you considered exercising and weight training? And I said, oh, okay. Do I not need to fix my problems first? He said, no. Just go and try it out. And so I took his advice and it's really helpful, right? So, I mean, women at my age, we need to start worrying about muscle loss, bone density issues. And the weight training does help greatly. In fact, I had a DEX scan a year ago. And according to the scan, my bones are really healthy now. It's healthy as people in the 20s. So I feel very proud.
There you go.
Phenomenal. I mean, every year I have an annual medical. And so I've got now 15 years of data on my bones, my muscle, my body composition, and the same thing. Basically, I get the conclusion that I've got the sort of the cardiovascular fitness, the muscle mass of someone in their 20s or 30s. And it's just incredible that I genuinely feel that I have actually managed to reverse the aging process. It's an incredibly empowering feeling. Yeah. And I'm sure for you, it must have an impact on your social interactions that you feel physically stronger. Does it change the way you are as a human being in your role?
I feel that my colleagues now look at me, especially sort of the younger generations in the company. I think they enjoy the fact that they have a leader who is fit. I don't know, why, but it's a very good way to let them feel that this is a place where filled with energy, right? Because the leader is all the way out there doing things with them, exercising with them, and that to me is the most profound change I can see.
And you have been specifically, I think, very inspirational in the financial community in that regard. So can you tell us something about what you've been doing, I think, with the Shenzhen Stock Exchange and also in terms of fitness within the Hong Kong Stock Exchange itself?
Okay. Oh, that's a very long story to tell. So I remember it was because, I rejoined the exchange in January 2020, just as COVID started unveiling. And I mean, people were working at home. And I think after a while, they were really yearning for, opportunities to do something together. And so my my colleagues in HR suggested maybe we should do some virtual exercise classes. And they were going around to ask the senior management, okay, can you sponsor a class? Can you lead a class? And I was saying, oh, well, and I told them, fine, okay, what do you want me to do? And they suggested Tai Chi. So I started doing online Tai Chi classes at work, which was quite nice. I had to refresh myself. I took lessons ages ago. Then another colleague that online yoga, and then another one was doing just online stretching exercises. And we were very encouraged by the feedback, and people really loved it. So after COVID subsided, we decided that, we have to continue, right? Because, by popular demand, they want more classes. And then we started something called the Wellness Challenge a few years ago. And this we do with our London Metal Exchange colleagues joining as well. And this is really over summer, 2 months, we compete, right? Division to division, the number of the amount of distance travel. You can run, you can walk, you can cycle, you can swim, whatever it is. But on a combined basis, divisions will compete with one another. And I was at the time head of the listing function at the exchange. And the listing function is a hugely competitive group of people. And they were so eager to win. So they actually demanded that me being the head of listing had to set a good example. And so I worked it all out. I did some research. And the most efficient way is to cycle, yeah? And I already bought my bike by then, so I was doing quite a bit. I remember in 2 months, I traveled a total distance of 4,200 kilometers on the bike, which averaged more than 60K a day.
Wow.
But it was during COVID, right? So I was very strategic about it. I had 3 sessions a day. So in the morning, 20K, lunchtime, 20K, evening, 20K. And I actually came first of all the women colleagues at the company.
So impressive.
Yeah. So that was, and we continue to do it. The Wellness Challenge is hugely, hugely popular. And then after that, someone suggested maybe we should start a network, and we did, and it's called the HKEX Fit. And underneath it, we must have by now about 8 to 10 different sports. And the senior management team, my management committee colleagues, they will sponsor, right? So we have matched each team with an MCO sponsor. And and then they decided, okay, maybe we should start inviting other companies in the financial service industry to compete. And so we did. And we became even more ambitious last year. We did quite a bit with the Shenzhen Stock Exchange already because we have the Stock Connect program. And it's usually just strictly business, right? Operational stuff. But I decided maybe we should, do some extracurricular activities together. So I contacted them and asked them, are you interested to sort of compete with our fitness team? And they said, oh, by all means. In fact, we have a sports day coming up. Do you guys want to come over to compete? So in the end, I brought over to Shenzhen about 200 people. These are athletes and the cheering squad all together. And we competed with them on 4 sports. It was badminton, table tennis, basketball, and football. I'm not going to tell you the results. Okay? They're much younger, demographically, but our team had such a good time. So now I am even more ambitious. And this year, we are planning to have a big sports day in Hong Kong for the whole company. It's going to be fun.
And obviously you travel all the time.
Yes.
So I'd love to ask you, what things in terms of your training routine, what changes are you able to keep up in element of weight training? And then with nutrition as well.
Yes.
Are there certain things you always make an essential, like your protein intake, that you keep on top of whilst away?
Okay. The traveling is annoying, I have to say, because it sort of breaks up my routine. And I have to confess, depending on how much I'm traveling and where I am, I sometimes will skip, the program. But what I tend to do when I'm on the road, I do always pack my exercise clothes so that I can, whenever I can find time, I'll go to the gym. I have elastic bands in my luggage all the time. So at the minimum, I can do some stretching in the room if I can't go to the gym. And this week, for example, I was in Malaysia on Monday, Saudi Arabia on Tuesday, and I arrived in London yesterday. It's been hectic. So I did manage to go to the gym for a bit of a run, walk, cycling last night. But yeah, it's difficult to keep up. But one thing I do a lot if I know I'm not able to go to the gym while I travel is I walk. I just walk as much as I could afford to. And, a city like London, it's quite walkable. I mean, if it's not raining. So that at least compensates a little bit. And nutrition, or the question of nutrition. Now, again, this is one silver lining of COVID for me is I used to eat out a lot. And, it's not particularly easy to stay very healthy when you eat out. But COVID just changed it completely for me. We started preparing meals at home. And now I still, keep to that. So I mentioned earlier, every evening after work, if I don't have a business dinner, then I go home and cook a simple meal, and it's much more healthy. And, I try to be balanced, so it will be, I always have an item, which is protein and veggies, which my husband and I really like eating. And it's very, very simple. Now, again, the traveling just upsets that because, you have to eat out. But, it's I think with the amount of exercise I'm doing, I'm generally fine. One trick I've learned, because I go to conferences a lot, and usually at conferences, you go to these big dinners and lunches. So I have a rule, which is every time I go to lunches and dinners at conferences, I always go with the vegetarian option. Yeah, it at least feels better.
That's great. And going back to the fitness and the weight training regime, a lot of women who will be watching this will say, weight training as a woman, I'm going to get really bulky and get huge muscles, and I'm going to look like one of those female bodybuilders, and I don't really want a body like that. So I don't really want to weight train. What would be your response?
Well, that's a total misperception. I mean, I wish I can look like a bodybuilder. I mean, to achieve that, you will need to subject yourself to a very different routine altogether. I think genetically, for us Asians, our muscles are just not that big, right, to start with. So, I mean, yeah, I really don't think that people should be overly worried about being bulky. It's very difficult to describe, but once the muscles build up, it actually feels really good. I mean, I tell people, right, even if I just squat and stand up, I can feel the strength, and it's a lovely feeling. So don't worry about being bulky. I mean, I've been now weightlifting for, 5 years now? I mean, you look at me. Do I look bulky? I don't think so.
You just look great. You look strong. You look very, very much younger than your age as a result of it. It has a huge positive impact on you.
Yeah, yes. And sometimes, I like to tell these little stories about how the benefits of exercising. I'll tell you one. So this is probably a few months after I started my exercise regime, right? And I was building my core, right? Very proud of building my core muscle. Then I had to go to a Bloomberg interview at Davos. Now, they put me on a swivel chair, okay? And, and it's very loose. So right before the interview started, the reporter sort of looked at me and say, make sure you do not swivel. It looks horrible on camera. That was the last thing he told me. And then I was like, oh dear, what do I now do? Because it was really swinging. So I remember my coach said, engage your core. So for the next 9 minutes, I was sitting on this swivel chair, looking very calm, answering all the questions. And all those 9 minutes, I was like really sitting on the chair, engaging my core.
I think that's great. And basically, you weight train so you're good in Bloomberg interviews in Davos.
I know. And I look at the footage afterwards and, no one would be able to tell the amount of exercise I went through in those 9 minutes. But, that's just one example of how exercise could come in handy in all situations.
And you get a workout out of it as well.
I know.
Being interviewed. So we should have had a swivel chair, sorry.
So now I'm not fearful of swivel chairs. I conquer them.
Can you tell me the impact it has on your family life? So, does your husband weight train? What about the rest of your family? Do your children think about it? How does that work?
My husband does not weight train. He's still gym shy. I will one day convince him that it's okay to go to the gym and exercise. But he's also on, the exercise bike routine. So we have worked out a system so that we don't need to fight over the bike. He finishes work earlier than I do. So usually he will, do his hour of exercise bike before dinner. I go home, I cook dinner. When we finish, I go on the bike. So that's his exercise regime. And on top of that, we walk a lot. So in the weekends, we try as much as possible not to drive or take public transportation and just walk around town. Hong Kong is very walkable. So that's his exercise.
I think this is one of the things that a lot of people don't understand about Hong Kong. It is an unbelievably beautiful place to walk in.
Yeah.
The trekking and the hiking in Hong Kong is incredible. And I think when you look at people in Hong Kong, one of the reasons that perhaps Hong Kong doesn't appear to have as much obesity, despite the restaurants and amazing food that it has, is because it's such a walkable city. I think it's very important in town planning. Obviously, the geography of Hong Kong makes it easier.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're very lucky. Like, at work, our building is just next to the harborfront, and they have built a very nice walkway along the harborfront. So our running team, they practice, I think, twice a week, maybe. Yeah. So, they sometimes go to the sports field and run the track, and sometimes they just, run along the harborfront, which is lovely.
Obviously, physically, weight training has had a dramatic impact on you. Has it also had a big impact on your mental health?
Yes, I think so. Like I said earlier, whenever I lift weights, I just found that I'm speaking to myself a lot, and that is it's a big boost to the mental health. And in the evening, that 1 hour is also very precious when I am on the bike, because that's unwinding for me. That's just gives me an occasion to sort through what has happened during the day, how I want to sort of, plan for the next day. And that's how I keep my mental health, I feel. And also, I would say, because of all the exercise that as a company we're doing all together, that is also very important, because it's a way that, we create the bonding within the team. And overall speaking, I can sense the pulse of the company, which is pretty healthy at the moment.
Absolutely. Can you tell us about your personal trainer relationship? So Angus and I have this incredible relationship as a result of the training. So he built my schedule. I started training not dissimilar to you about maybe 6 years ago. And I never understood how to weight train properly until I met Angus.
Uh-huh.
And so he's been a crucial part of that journey for me. How has your relationship with your personal trainer helped your weight training? And what do you think it would have been like if you hadn't had a personal trainer?
Okay. It's a good question. So first of all, I work with a group of trainers. That's just how the gym that I go to is set up. But they are very thoughtful about how to work with me. So first of all, before I even started, they just sort of make me go through motions and figure out sort of what my limitations are and how they should come up with a program. And they discuss with me what my objectives are, and I explained to them that I'm a total newbie, and I had no idea what the ultimate goal is going to be. But I was very conscious that I'm at an age I need to keep up and make sure that I don't age too quickly, and that I preempt all these sort of muscle loss, bone loss issues. So they devised a program for me. And I would say over time, they have really understood my psyche. Okay. I have tendencies to also sometimes skive a little bit, and they would push me. And I sometimes suggest to them that this is it, right? I won't be able to lift anything more than that. And they will gently encourage me and try to sort of work around my laziness. So it's been very good relationship, I would say. And they're really quite professional in terms of sort of working with me. I'm very thankful that I have a team who was very understanding. They encourage me. They also push me, but they also understand that they have to work with a very busy executive, and therefore, even like when I'm on the road, they'll ping me. They'll say, "Okay, did you go to the gym?" and they always offer to do online classes for me when I'm on the road. But I've still not taken up their offer, but maybe one day.
It's interesting you said you're still not back to your peak, so you do track it.
Yes. They track it for me. So every time we do anything, we will go through some bargaining. Okay, they will always sort of like, okay, this is the practice round. I say this much, and they go back to history. Say, no, well, you've done this before, right? When? And it's all very scientific.
Yeah, I've heard that story before from a few clients of mine. Bonnie, obviously you are an incredible leader. What traits does it take to get to the position you are today in terms of mentality?
It's a very difficult question. So I always tell people I take a fatalistic approach to my career. So, I'm inherently quite a curious person. So, I always want to find out how things work. If I'm given a challenge, I usually will take it on. And so for me, I think, having sort of invested 30 years in the financial industry, it feels like natural progression to me, right? So when something comes along and it feels like a good challenge, I'll take it on. I think it's that growth mindset, as well as the willingness to learn something new. Because sometimes, when you're at a very senior position, it's a little intimidating to acknowledge that, there's something you don't know and you have to start from scratch. But as soon as you overcome that fear of not knowing and be willing to sort of embrace it and take it as a learning opportunity, I think that's when you will progress, right? And in fact, that's what I described to my executive coach. The reason I really like going to the gym is because at the gym, I'm totally ignorant. I don't know any moves. So I stand there and I'm a very patient student, just listening to what the coach tell me to do. And that learning is a good feeling.
Absolutely. Have you also found that in your meetings with other chief executives, politicians, diplomats around the world, that the subject of your fitness regime or their fitness regime ever comes up?
Always comes up. I think it's the nature of the job. It requires so much energy, and all of those people expected to show up in top form. So there's no secret recipe to achieving that. I think everyone will have their different ways of keeping up. And we'll exchange notes on, exercise. And I'll consult them on let me tell you the other story. So I never run, okay? Running, it's something I somehow never developed the fondness for. But I started getting a lot of invitation to run these VIP races, right? Leaders Cup. So a couple of weeks ago, there was the Hong Kong Marathon. And I got an invitation from the organizers saying that, we want to invite you to run the 2K race. And, I was dreading it, but then I mentioned it to other people who got the invitation, other leaders in town. I say, "Oh, are you going to run?" And they say, "Oh, yes, absolutely. Come along, right? It's great fun." So, I asked them for a lot of pointers, right? Even what running shoes I should buy. And then eventually I ran it. I did, try to get a little bit of training beforehand. And I didn't embarrass myself too poorly. So there you go, right? So, yes, as a group, we always talk about different things, and exercise is one of them.
And there's a classic example of constantly improvements and learning and doing things you haven't done before.
Yeah.
And you loved it.
Yeah. Oh, and I have to mention it. My chairman, he also participated in that VIP run, and he came first in his age group. Yay!
Whoa, impressive.
Yeah,
Very
he finished
impressive.
2K in 12 minutes.
Wow.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, really good. And so do you find then that when you're meeting all of these other senior people, that actually your exercise regime becomes a networking positive?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's something we share in common. I think just different tricks to, keep up with the needs of our job. And I would say this, in Hong Kong, we have this network called the Women CEO Group. So it's a group of about 60 female leaders, or CEOs in different financial services organizations. And that's also something we talk about a lot, because people always sort of, when they introduce me, say, "Oh, I'm the first female CEO of HKEX." Now, if you ask me, I didn't realize the importance, or why it's so unique to be the woman, right? To highlight the fact that I'm a woman. But now that I'm 1 year into the job, I do understand now, as a woman, there are different demands than a guy who's a CEO. Now, for one thing, people pay attention to what I wear, right? How I show up, and they make comments on these things, right? So I guess just going back to the topic of exercise, right? Just being in shape, it's something necessary in my job.
Maybe one final question from each of us before we wrap up. This has just been a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for doing it. I'd be interested to know how the fitness culture in China in aggregate, Hong Kong part of China obviously, but broadly in China, has changed over the years, and how it's changing now?
It's changing very fast. Okay, so I remember I started traveling into mainland China on business probably 30 years ago, right? And I still remember when you go around, you don't notice gyms, okay? Now, I didn't used to exercise, but I do know my colleagues always comment that it is quite difficult when you are on the road in mainland China to even find hotels with a good gym. It's difficult to go out for a run. It used to be because of pollution, or, just the quality of the roads. But in the last, I would say, 10 years, you see a remarkable change, and you see better facilities. Air quality has improved. And I do know, and this has something to do with my job, this must be about 2-3 years ago, during COVID, there was this one company in China seeking a listing in Hong Kong, and they do fitness equipment, but they also offer online classes, right? And I was chatting to the CEO, and he told me he used to be like a very chunky guy, and he started his own exercise regime, and then he founded the company, and they now it's a very big business, right? They now sort of run this big operations where they just allow a lot of people who don't have access to gyms in China to exercise, right, online. I mean, and with different programs, and it's fascinating. I think that culture of fitness, exercise, well-being has grown quite phenomenally in the last few years.
One of the core goals of this podcast is to get people lifting weights.
Yes.
So I would love to ask you the question, what is your message to people on the fence who are just worried or don't want to start weight training? Because we know the benefits, you know the benefits. So please tell me, what would you do to get them over?
Okay, so first of all, just do it, okay? And it's never too late to start. I started after I turned 50, and now I'm really enjoying it. It will be, intimidating at the beginning. You will question yourself. You'll look at the weights and say, started saying, just, over my dead body, I'm not going to live that. But very soon after you've started, you would always want to, okay, let me try. Let me put on a little bit more, another rep. It's okay. It will be fun.
Fantastic. Well, Bonnie, thank you so much for coming on the Lift for Life podcast. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Yes, absolutely. It was great fun.
It's wonderful having you here, and thank you so much. You've obviously a big journey over from Saudi Arabia yesterday, from Hong Kong a week ago, including Malaysia. Presumably you're going to be traveling a little bit more before getting back home. So really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.